Welcome to the Marketing Mentor Podcast with Ilise Benun, founder of marketing-mentor.com and author of 7 books, including The Creative Professional's Guide to Money. Since 2008, Ilise has been interviewing her clients and other successful professional creatives who are doing what it takes to stop the feast or famine syndrome, get better clients, and command the fees they deserve, and sharing the nuts and bolts of what they've learned so you can do it too. You can find more at marketing-mentor.com. And now, here's Ilise Benun.
Welcome to the 3rd episode in a special Revolve Conference series of the Marketing Mentor Podcast. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the Revolve Conference first. It will take place October 26 through 28, 2016 in beautiful and historic downtown Charleston, South Carolina. It features disruptive thought leaders, talented speakers, and trailblazers from the design, business, and marketing worlds, people from around the country who will come together to share road-tested insights over 3 days. And last year, I spoke at the inaugural event, and I was very impressed. So this year, I'm back as a media partner, and I'm interviewing selected speakers. That means I select the speakers I'm interested in. So today, I welcome Robert Prioleau. He's the founding partner and strategy director of Blue Ion, a brand experience agency that's based in Charleston. Now, Robert's topic at Revolve is one that's close to my heart. It's selling for those who hate selling, but we actually talked about much more than that, from the importance of communication and how to figure out the right thing to say, to principles and criteria that he uses to choose prospect and clients for Blue Ion, plus the books and the people who have inspired him, which you'll find in the show notes. Robert just kept dropping golden nuggets. I couldn't get them down fast enough. So listen and then try the ideas for yourself. Hello, Robert. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. And please, before we go anywhere, introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Robert Prioleau, and I'm a co-partner of a company in Charleston called Blue Ion. And we're sort of a full-service but digitally focused marketing company down here.
And we are talking as part of the Revolve Conference podcast series. And Revolve is happening October 26th through 28th, 2016 in Charleston. And you are one of the speakers.
That said, I still hope to see lots of people come. It's going to be a really good show.
So we're going to get to your topic, but let's start with the short version of your story. Tell us a little bit about where you came from and what you thought you'd be doing and how close that is to what you're actually doing now.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I appreciate it. Well, again, thank you for having me. I'm more or less been in the ad business most of my professional career. I spent time growing up in Houston and a little time up in the Northeast. Went to college and was a history major and was trying to figure out what to do with all that, and somehow lined up an internship at an ad agency in Austin, a wonderful place called GSD&M. And that started a career in advertising that more or less is, moved from 1 or 2 agencies, but has been focused on strategy, planning, and account management my whole career. And that took me from Austin to ultimately Atlanta, and then to Charleston, where we wanted to move just for quality of life more than anything else, and worked with an agency here. And about 16 years ago, I met my 2 business partners, David and Rich. And at that time, the web was taking off, and I was more interested in the digital side of things than I was in the rest of the advertising side of things. David was a creative director, freelancer. Rich was a programmer and a freelancer, and the 3 of us formed Blue Ion, and we've been doing that ever since.
Beautiful. And so what is your role at Blue Ion?
I am a strategy director, so most of my days are spent developing strategy, whether that's brand, whether that's marketing, whether that's digital, materials or digital marketing. And the other side of the hat I wear is probably more of a production management side, and just help participate and guide all of our production efforts. So mostly strategy with a dose of production management.
Okay, so then why did you say equal parts sheep herder, strategist, and therapist? How does that work?
Yeah, well, I guess it relates to personally what I like doing the most, as I've figured that out over the course of my career. I've over time slowly, on my good days, started to develop some skills in those areas, and it's also kind of comes back to how we approach marketing and branding today. So I'll explain a little bit. So I think probably all the way back from being a history major, I've loved larger themes. I like research. I like trying to find long-term trends and sort of connecting things. And when I went to graduate school in business, I think the only thing I remember from that MBA was case study work, where you would barrel into a case study, do some research, and have to come to some conclusions and make some recommendations. At the end of the day, that's what I like doing. And so a little bit of that is developing sort of vision and planning. But the other side of that is I think over the years, we felt that really the best brands in the world, the strongest brands with the strongest communities, are ones that have a very good sense of self and an idea about a purpose or a cause that they're trying to make a dent in the world. And so we've come to view marketing, at least in the way we do it, as a process of revealing that truth, revealing that sense of purpose within a brand, and then helping clients express that and share that and connect with others and to celebrate that. And so in large part, when we go to work with someone, whether we're just hired to develop a website or do some digital marketing or really help them through a rebranding process, it's really a journey within. It has to be within them. And our work is to actually work with them to reveal that, articulate that, and then bring it to life through all their actions. And in that way, it oftentimes feels a little bit like a therapist.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that stuck with us. I think it probably, again, comes a little bit back to personal preference about, how I believe connections are made in life. But I also believe that the good brands, the good businesses, the ones we admire really do have that very strong sense of purpose and build communities around that shared purpose.
And so it sounds like you do a lot of work with clients on the client side. And so I just want to take a little tangent here, if you don't mind, because I put a blog post up today about effective communication with clients, essentially, and the idea that it's really important to say the right thing at the right moment and that nobody is born knowing what that is. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are about effective communication with clients. Do you have tips you can share or problems that you see happening that other people can, kind of work on?
Yeah, and it's a huge issue. We were actually just talking about it, our entire team, this morning in our Monday morning staff meeting. And this morning we were talking about it more from a production, angle, like in terms of the chaotic work that gets done to develop sites and launch materials and programs. But I think it also goes right back to the heart of the issue of when you first meet a prospective client and you decide to ultimately work together, and then you move into developing brand strategy, that allows you then to start executing. I think that communication and those connections are what make the whole process work or what make it all break down. And so at those very first stage, when we have the opportunity to meet someone, to even begin discussing a relationship or a project, we believe it's imperative to be very, very clear about what we do, about how we do it, and what that process might look like and what those deliverables are. And the reason is A, we want them to know that and have a very clear sense of that. But B, we want to get into a relationship that is going to work and last for years and years and years. And if we're interviewing them in some ways as much as they're interviewing us, and you're only going to get to a good understanding of each other and see if you share the same goals, the same values, the same, process, if you ask a lot of really frank and questions and listen. And so that's really important from the get-go. As we get into branding, as I mentioned earlier, having the right questions that really force a client to really open up and express why did they found this business or this nonprofit? What are their true goals? What drives them? What do they want their legacy to be 30 years from now? The kind of conversations and communications we have on that level are just central to everything we wind up doing for them. Everything we write, everything we design, everything we build, everything we market all comes back to that premise that is driven really by their sense of purpose and long-term perspective on what they want to accomplish. And then third, you get back into, again, these executional issues. I mean, they're wildly complex processes that get, programmers and designers and writers and photographers and videographers and producers and everyone who's involved in a website, including obviously the clients. And there's so many things that can go wrong. And I find that 9 out of 10 times is communication is the what makes it work or what makes it fail. And that's just, you have to be so detailed and so, it's the wrong word, but so militant about it to make sure that everybody, as they're adding their piece to the puzzle, knows really, really, really well what's going on and what they need to account for. If things are drifting longer than they should or more complex, that all needs to be communicated and put in writing so that nobody is questioning that later. So I find that communication is honestly probably the major issue in new business, in developing strategy, and all the way through execution.
And I want to talk about new business since that's going to be the topic of your session. But just one other question then. Mm-hmm. When you hire people, are you looking for people who already have that kind of communication skill, and or do you train people to do it the way you want it done?
Probably more the first, but definitely, to the extent we need to, the second. Mm-hmm. I think we've been big believers that we hire people for their attitude and then we train them for their skills. And I think to some degree that energy and that desire to want to communicate, share, and connect and make sure that people are all moving along together is in some sense in some people and it's not others. And we really want to see some evidence that you've done that, whether that's in your school, whether that's in your previous job, whether that's in some extracurricular, type of activity. So I think we look for that. Once we find those great people and plug them in, just as we were this morning, we're all trying to figure out how to do a little bit better and learn from each other. And we get it wrong as many times as we get it right. So we're constantly trying to figure out how can we do this better.
And I would think also then, if you're looking at someone's portfolio, you can't really tell what the process was or the thinking behind it was, or even the communication behind it just by looking at images.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think you can at all. You don't get any of the sense of where that came from, through the end product. And I think that's, you bring up an interesting point, in terms of thinking about even new business is like that focus on the end product. There's a website, there's a conceptual piece of material or whatever. That's the very, tip of the iceberg, so to speak, of all the conversations and all the thinking and all the sharing, that went into that. And how do you convey that to someone? It's sort of a difficult thing to do when you're talking to someone in a new business mode, or even when they are a client and you're at the early stages of that project.
So let's talk about in new business mode, since your session is called Selling for Those Who Hate Selling, which I'm sure most of my listeners will be nodding their heads like, yes, that's me. I'm sure most people, right? So tell us about that. What exactly is that and how do you do it?
Yeah, well, thank you. Man, I'd love to hear more from them too, because there's so many interesting angles to this. I in all these years of advertising and marketing, I've been selling or been in a business development role, whether that was ever in my title, which it has never been in my title, but it's always there, and that's true whether you're trying to set up the next project or find the next account and client, or you're even trying to sell a concept, that you all have developed and brought to the table, or your ideas, or yourself, and even in terms of getting a job or moving ahead within a company. So, whether you want to admit it or not, or understand it or not, we're all involved in that. And I certainly have found myself in the middle of that. And that's not always something that comes naturally to me and something that I typically enjoy. There's many different ways you can sort of define these things, but I'm a big believer in those sort of Briggs-Myers types of personality types and questions, and I've always enjoyed taking those. And every time I've ever taken that little test that spits out a 4-letter code, I've been an INFJ. And I'm off the charts, introvert versus extrovert, which is the I in INFJ. And it's not that I don't like to talk to people, and you can't associate with people. It's more about, where does your energy come from? Does your energy come from, having these moments of quiet and contemplation so that then you can have the energy to go out and embrace the world and do these things? Or do you drive your energy from being around people? And that gives you the energy to go do other things. And for me, that I'm a hardcore introvert to that degree. So that feeling that I was supposed to be out selling, being an extrovert, was always a difficult thing to fathom. So I knew that if I was going to get anywhere in my job, anywhere in my work, anywhere as a co-partner in a business, I had to figure out a way that was going to work for me personally, and also a way of selling, so to speak, that was going to work for the businesses that I was involved in too, either as an employee or now as a partner. And I guess what came to that was similar to what we were talking about earlier, is that I believe that really good businesses stand for something very, very strong and profound. And that way people can navigate to them, and they develop communities about that purpose and those shared values. And I like that model. That feels more natural to me, more comfortable to me, and ultimately more effective to me than trying to run out there and say what people want you to say, or be what people want you to be. So that kind of methodology just sort of turned into a couple different principles that I think is at the heart of what I've tried to use and develop as an approach to selling ideas, selling this company and this business, and, or also how we sort of approach marketing with our clients in general. And the first of those is really this notion of getting out of the mode of selling things and instead standing for something. What do we believe as Blue Ion? What is our purpose? What do we want our legacy to be, the work that we do and the difference that we make in our clients' lives? And, it's about websites, it's about marketing, it's about materials, but it's not really about that. It's ultimately helping someone channel that truer sense of purpose and letting them ultimately share the energy that they're made of. And that comes to life through words, it comes to life through materials, through marketing, hopefully even through products and services and all the other things that they do. So to us, if we can kind of approach this as, we are Blue Ion, this is what we do, this is how we go about it, this is what we believe great brands do, and this is who we want to be involved with, it allows you to go into that process almost as an equal partner to the person you're talking with. And you're going in there to see if this is a potential fit, not just hopefully convince them to hire you, because you had the best presentation that day or something.
And it seems like that is a mind shift, that people usually, what if they're selling something, they hope the other person likes it. They hope the other person buys it. And it sounds like you're saying, take a stand, know who you are, take a stand, and then don't try to be everything to everyone.
Yes, exactly. And hopefully you're taking that stand from a place that you truly believe in. So it's authentic and it's something that you want to pursue. And so that way, you're not having to make this stuff up, and then B, they can determine if that's a fit with what they believe in and where they want to go. Mm-hmm. And the good news is I'm sure many people we wind up talking to have really come to us to do something more specific, like, can you make us a website? Can you help us with this marketing program? And we start talking about purpose and start talking about this journey we want to go on. And more often than not, and certainly for those that we wind up working with, they understand that that's actually the first step, and a really exciting piece of that is to go and really discuss what are they up to, why does their work matter, and that's where it's going to start before we know what kind of website or what kind of marketing program to take them with. So it allows us to put that on the table right at the front so that we know whether we're a potential fit for each other or whether this might be a quick project and then we would go our separate ways. And that's not our intent. We don't want to do projects and work with clients that are just sort of do the project and then go away.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So that's number one.
The second element of that is I just sort of touched on a little bit, but it's like, can you go into any kind of selling situation? And I'll keep coming back to sort of the new business situation because it's something obviously that all agencies do but it's, can you interview them as much as they're interviewing you, and that is to really come to that meeting, come to that conversation with some really strong questions that ask them to at least ponder, if not answer, some of those sort of deeper, bigger issues that we're saying we want to go explore, So what is your founding story? If your business or your service didn't exist tomorrow, would your customers truly suffer any loss? What makes you truly, truly different? It's those kinds of questions that really spark all kinds of interesting dialogue, and I think set the stage for where we want to go together and where they could possibly go and take it. And so that notion of interviewing them as much as they interview you, I think is a demonstration of this is where we want to go together. And it also just sort of shows that you're curious and you're interested in, their business and their dreams and their goals.
And do you ever come across prospects who just, don't have time or don't want to spend the time? Just give me the website. I don't have time to answer your questions.
That's it, exactly. Just like, that's great. I just really wanted a website. And that happens, for sure that happens. And when it does, we have to decide whether, is there room for that gear for us to do some of that work together? And if not, it might be that this isn't the best relationship, or this isn't the best thing to get into. And I'll be the first to recommend, another path or someone else who could help them. I might argue that if your goal is to really get that, just a site built, with these sort of specifications and this sort of budget and time frame, there might be an easier place to go do that. And I feel like that's one way that I can help that situation, help them. And I don't know this for sure, but I feel that many times those people have come full circle years later and said, hey, we're ready to do the project like you wanted to do it. And then we get to work with them at that point. Mm-hmm. I would much rather have that conversation about helping them find someone else than I would be stumble into a project that we're not going to be excited about or that we might not do our best at, because that's just going to be more miserable than getting started together anyway.
Right.
The other, I think maybe one of the most important things that was really a struggle for me, still is learning to say no. When I was growing up and cutting my teeth in advertising and trying to move my way up, into positions of more responsibility, I felt like I was supposed to say yes to everything, and that was eating me out in the inside. I mean, it was I felt like I was in the middle of a fight where I was supposed to say yes to everything without really knowing if it was even possible or something that I believed in. You might have clients who are angry. You might have the rest of your agency team that's angry with the outcome. And I was like, how did I get in the middle of all this? And when we started Blue Ion, to avoid getting to that place that felt like burnout or felt like being a punching bag, I needed to learn to say no to things and do that in the right way. It's not just popping off no to everybody when you don't like what they have to say, but it comes back to standing for something, interviewing them, and making sure that that's the right fit for you as well as them. And I think a piece of that is having some really strong criteria in your back pocket that you can filter what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're thinking about, and say, does that come back and meet our criteria? And really try to be diligent about sticking to that criteria. There's an incredible design practice, Bruce Mao Design, and he had one of the books or articles I had read about him. He kind of spelled that out, that criteria, and I think I stole it verbatim and we still use it today, but he just described it as 4 Ps. Are they interesting people? Is it an interesting project? Does it somehow add to your profit? And can you bring this onto your plate without upsetting everything else? Mm. And those 4 Ps have always been really important. And anytime we've sort of rationalized dropping one of them, those projects have always come back to bite us.
Right.
If we stick to those 4 Ps, we're usually in really good shape.
And so this also comes back to the communication issue, because it's one thing to say no, but how do you say no in the right way? Yes.
There's an arrogant way to say it. Say, no, that's not me. I can't work this way, and can get up and leave. Or there's a no, this is why, and even a no, but here's probably a better setup for you, And I think there's a way to say no without even necessarily sometimes saying the words no. Mm. But it provides a clear and probably better path for them to pursue. And I think you're right. That comes down to communication.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, which all comes back to really the last point, which you just touched on, is in the end, I think, there's a lot of pressure on new business, a lot of pressure on selling. Did I win? Did I fail? Are we going to get this project? Are we going to, work with this client or not? But, in the end, it really comes down to this people connecting with people thing. I do believe, I don't think it's any great wisdom, but that people connect with people. They don't connect with companies. They don't hire a company. They connect the people, that are in this conversation and the people that they might ultimately work with and develop relationships with. So I think values and trust and teamwork, are the most important issues of all, even more important than the work that we can show them today, and put in our portfolio. So I'm very, very focused on how can I bring the team members from our table to the table so that we can meet them and begin to develop really important relationships that are going to be central to these projects and these brands surviving over time. And, that notion of people, no one ever has said it better to me than the author John Steele, who was an account planner at an agency and wrote a great book called Perfect Pitch, I believe is the name. And he said, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. It's somehow through communication and through having honest empathy for someone's situation and what they're trying to accomplish. If you can demonstrate that care off at the start, then they'll listen to anything in the world you have to say about all that you know and all that you can do. But without it, I think you're just one of another 100, options for them, and price or some other issue might win at the end of the day if that's the option.
Interesting. Well, I can't wait to hear the rest of your session when we are in Charleston in October. I just have one or two more quick questions for you.
Sure, please.
What are you looking forward to most at Revolve?
I think great conferences to me are three things that this is a personal thing, but number one, it's just this chance to unplug for a second and soak up ideas and inspiration, just from the people who are obviously there sharing. There's just nothing better than that. And we all need that, and we need to continue doing that. Second is aside from kind of what they're saying and what they believe in, is how did they do that? More often than not, I'm like, wow, how did they put together that presentation? Or how did they package that content? Or even just, the screen design and the fonts used, or even, programmers who will show a bit of code and work, how they actually make something animate and come to life in their presentation. So in terms of just presentation, strategy, and building, I think these conferences are awesome, and Revolve will do that. And then, finally, it's just usually a really awesome occasion to hang out with a bunch of like-minded, fun people. And that's, the more we do that, the better we all are anyway. So that's sort of my three criteria for any conference. And, Revolve delivers that in a serious way.
Excellent. And lastly, what is the best advice you've ever received?
It's a tough question. I mean, I can think about really important life lessons from parents and parents and all that, and I'm trying to think of one that connects a little bit to life and to business to make it relevant. And I would say that one book that really moved me, well, first his presentation at TED moved me, and then his book moved me, and his writings. And it's Sir Kenneth Robinson, I think, who's credited with at least 2 or 3 of the most viewed presentations of all time on TED. And he wrote a book called The Element, which is how people find this intersection of passion and talent, and how that set them on a course to do great things in their life. And he has this wonderful thing, and often he's talking about schools and how schools often teach creativity out of kids and sort of squash that intelligence and that creativity. And he says, we ask the wrong questions of a person. We ask, how intelligent are you? And we should be asking, how are you intelligent? And I thought that was just a beautiful way of thinking about that. How do we look into someone and reveal something that says what they're passionate about and what they're really good at doing? And if you can find those two things in something or someone, then great things can happen. And I believe that personally. I think my journey is to try to figure out those two things. What do I love doing? What am I good at doing? And how do I continue to build that into the center of what I do? I think that's really important for our business, Blue Ion, is to continue to figure that out. And I think that's true for all the clients we get to work with, is helping them figure that out for themselves. And it's about how is someone intelligent? Because everyone has a certain intelligence. Every brand hopefully has a certain intelligence, and it's recognizing that and drawing that out. And his words seem to do that like nobody else's. He also incredible presentation at TED. It's just amazing.
I haven't seen that, so I'll go look for it.
He does it without slides or anything. He's got this. It's unfair because he has this wonderful British accent. So sounds good.
Excellent. This has been great. Thank you, Robert. Tell people where they can go find more information about you and Blue Ion.
Yeah, I mean, the best place to find me is usually through Blue Ion. I mentioned earlier, I'm an introvert. I'm not as social as I probably should be individually. and as a professional, but everything that I do is usually done, with and through the gang here at Blue Ion. So if they just start at blueion.com, and they'll get to all of our social media there and tune into what we're up to here. We love to have people come and visit and talk and do presentations here like you and others have done in the past. And so whenever someone can tune into that and come join us at Blue Ion, I'll be in the thick of that as well and get to touch base with them that way. And then certainly come to Revolve and see us at Revolve, because I think it's going to be a really, really fun gathering.
Excellent. Me too. I will see you in Charleston.
Thanks for listening. Now go try out what you've learned. If you like what you hear, you can go to marketing-mentor.com and sign up for Ilise's quick tips from Marketing Mentor and her free 30-minute mentoring session to get your burning questions answered. Check out what's on sale in the Marketing Mentor shop, like the Pick a Niche Kit, proposal bundles for designers and copywriters, and the 30 Minutes a Day marketing plan. Ilise is also the host of the How Design Live podcast, a programming partner